It's March 29th, 2022, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Gerissar, a PvP Padawan.
Hey guys, Bigmoran here. I'm a critically acclaimed PvP historian. At least that's what I tell myself. And this is episode 151 of the Technically PvP podcast. Usually we have three of us here. Jake sometimes joins us, Treesap Jake. But he's gone this week, and we're taking turns because I was gone 2 weeks ago. So anyway, starting things off, they're going to be talking about RMT today, so it's going to be an interesting point of discussion. But first, let's get some updates on what we've been doing.
Indeed, that was really good intro. I like that.
Thank you.
You like did that on the fly too. Wow. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So you said it almost made it sound like you said RMP, not RMT.
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 What's the difference? What's the difference, right? These days, people seem to hate both of those things equally. So
exactly. I think just one stun locks you a little bit more.
Right.
Well, I guess what have we been up to for the last 2 weeks? I guess you threw it at me first, so I should probably respond to that. So I been running a bunch more mythics and finally got a 5-person team together. So we signed up for the MDI. We're just waiting for the next batch to go through and hopefully get access to the tournament realm, assuming that they didn't find anything wrong on any of our accounts. And really, like this last week, I actually laid low on a bunch of WoW chores. I think I got the weekly done there over Zeroth Mortis, and then kind of didn't really play my main character. One thing I did do is I found this wonderful spreadsheet for gold crafting. And what it is, you go into the auction house and you plug in all the average price numbers. And then what it does is it tells you how much it's going to cost, what the best way is to make the legendary base items. And also it tells you whether or not you can make money just making stuff and vendoring it or not. And so, yeah. So then I found out that I can make 5 gold for every time I made, I think it was the robe, the light shower, the cloth robe. So I went and I bought a bunch of the threads, and I bought a bunch of the mats off the auction house, the cheap cloth, and I started making a whole bunch of them. And I'm like, man, this is taking a long time. I don't feel like I'm really making any money, you know? And then I realized that I was in Oribos buying the Penumbra thread, and apparently you don't get the reputation discount off of the vendor there. So I was buying the thread at 2.5 gold more per thread than if I was going to a reputation discounted vendor, which works out quite a bit of money. Good. Yeah, no, so I ended up throwing away a few thousand dollars. Gold. But
dollars.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, that's a good point. I got to make sure we differentiate the two, because gold and dollars is kind of what we're going to be talking about here. So I should be careful in that. But Big, how about you? What have you been up to at last 4 weeks? Because you weren't here the last time.
Well, actually, it's kind of same thing with you. I didn't play that much WoW last week, and really I didn't do any of my chores. I was busy with some skill cap stuff. But I will say this. Speaking of the auction house, I'm quite happy that the Mage Tower has come back, because in my bags, I remember last time Mage Tower was around, there's some gems that, I don't know if they're still going to work the same way, but there's some low-level gems that give you really good base stats for intellect and agility. And I've had those in my bags for ages, because they were quite valuable when the Mage Tower was first released a few months ago. I don't know how many months ago that was. So I have all these gems in my bags that maybe I could sell for decent money now. So that's quite nice. Again, it's low-level gems. I don't know if they're still going to be selling, but hopefully they are. So I might be able to make a pretty penny from that.
There's hoping. Am I starting to get you into doing more auction house and gold making stuff? Is that what's happening here?
Uh, Potentially, maybe I'll corner some markets on my local servers, but no, just kind of accidentally doing that this week.
Nice, cool, cool. It's actually interesting. You brought up the skill cap, and I should probably mention on the show we've actually teamed up with Skill Cap. They've given us an affiliation link, so if anybody wants to sign up there and save a little bit of money, if you head over to the Twitter, it's the pinned post on the profile for the Technically PvP. Click on that link, and when you sign up for a plan, you'll get a 5% discount, which I think is actually pretty good. Like that'll at least save taxes in some places. So it's better than nothing, right? So
Better than nothing, yeah, of
yeah,
course.
it kind of helps us out too, right? So
Yeah,
indeed. Well, I think let's. So we've kind of hinted at this. I know we talked about it over on Twitter. There's some posts that we put up on Reddit to get some conversations going on, and also I put some up on the official forums. So we're going to change up the way we do this show a little bit. We're going to go straight into the subject of analysis and really dig into this whole topic of the real money transaction and boosting, and just what's been going on in WoW for the past, well, shoot, over a decade, eh?
right.
So I
A
guess,
long time.
oh, it's been a long time. I should probably actually do a bumper though, I think.
Yeah, get that bumper going.
Here we go.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
All right, there we go. Got Millhouse in the house. He's helping us light up the house. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the real money trading, real money transactions, what that means for boosting in rated PvP and everything. So I guess let's kind of put this into, well, what does it mean for anybody that engages into this? And what I mean there is really the end user license agreement, the EULA, right? So
Yeah,
I find this interesting. So according to Blizzard's EULA, and they've always had this where real money cannot be used to pay for services in amongst players. By all means,
right.
Blizzard will take your money for it, right? But the only money that we're allowed to use in the game for any services has to be the in-game gold currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this. I mean, back in the initial days of vanilla, you have all these gold selling sites and everything. You could go to their website and pay some real money, get some gold from them, and hopefully Blizzard never finds out, and otherwise you get banned. And then
Right.
later on, there's always been this. I guess let's fast forward to even this expansion. I mean, there's a number of websites that were well known that were doing gold boosting. We're seeing them all throughout the LFG system that have a bunch of dummy accounts of I don't know, whatever level people just sitting there. They would get a cut for sitting on trade chat or in LFG taking, basically like customer service helpline. Yeah, you whisper them and then they point you to where to go and you pay so much gold. And it seems like Blizzard's okay with that because in the middle of all that, they started making a bunch of money, I think, because of the token system, right?
Right.
So instead of so if I gave you $100 big to boost me, we would both get banned for doing that. But
Presumably.
assuming we get caught.
Yeah.
But I can give Blizzard that $100 as the form of buying some tokens, sell those tokens on the auction house, and get in whatever that works out to gold. And I can give you that gold, and that's okay. And then you could take that gold and buy a token off the auction house and turn that back into Blizzard bucks, which you can't actually really ever turn into money anywhere else, right? Because it's held within the Blizzard system. You can't cash that out anywhere. But in a way, it's kind of like a little bit of money laundering scheme there, right?
Yeah. And to some extent, though, this system isn't necessarily new. So the WoW token is, I think, a sort of unique middleman to this situation that kind of replaced, right, gold selling websites in many ways, at least
Mhm.
functionally, over the course of WoW's history. Just anecdotally, and hopefully I'm not jumping ahead too much, but it was really common in TBC to first of all, buying gold was incredibly common. I think in
Yeah.
TBC. I mean, it was quite you know websites were a dime a dozen, and you had those players who would control characters who would die on the floor of Orgrimmar and spell out the name of a website. I don't know if you remember that, but like the skeletons would
Yep.
spell out the name of a gold selling
Yep.
website, and so it was very
Wowgold.com or
common,
something like that.
right? And there's always those I don't know, sketchy messages you'd get sometimes.
Mhm.
In any case, right? It's not a modern phenomenon. The WoW token is just kind of this weird, ephemeral, like middleman that kind of replaces unintentionally or perhaps intentionally this process that's been happening for a really long time.
Mhm.
But just to make it clear going forward that what we're talking about really requires some historical context. That it's not just a new phenomenon. It's something that has really been happening for a while. And the WoW token is kind of a very ephemeral, sort of weird middleman to these transactions that previously were completely bannable offenses. But
Oh, is it
anyway,
exactly? And that's a great way to. I think that's really what we're doing. We're just trying to put that little bit of a frame around the time frame of
yes.
this and that. Um, so so then that does bring back to what we're talking about. And actually, I should point out it actually says right in the WoW support article that it points out that trading between modern WoW Classic and Burning Crusade Classic is also unsupportable. But they also like tell you to report people, like you know, to report somebody buying or selling items or services for real money, just by right clicking and using the in-game support system, which
Hmm.
I believe, although they say it's not. I believe that's actually somewhat abusable as well. So
Yeah, probably.
yeah, that's a whole other side. So let's scratch out this. So big. Why? Wait. How do you feel about boosting? How do you feel about real money transactions and boosting people in rated PvP?
Well, that's kind of a layered question. Geez, I'm gonna take. I want to take a neutral stance on
Okay.
this topic because, and not that's not to say that I support gold boosting or don't support it. I want to kind of understand it from both sides. So
Sure.
I'm completely sympathetic with the argument that boosting hurts my experience. So if
Okay.
you're any rated player, right, are inevitably going to run into a team that is probably performing some type of boost, whether that be for gold or for real money. It doesn't necessarily matter. And I completely understand the position of, well, I'm queuing into people who I shouldn't be queuing into. They're giving someone an advantage that person shouldn't be having otherwise. And that generally seems a bit unfair. So I completely understand that position. My general take with boosting, and this is something I want to circle back to eventually, is that boosting is more a reflection on the design of the game itself rather than the community who engages in it. And what I mean by that is I think that the way the game is structured with its reward system, especially now in Shadowlands where gear has rating requirements for upgrades, I think boosting is in many ways a symptom of a system that's already broken for gearing and optimizing your character. So that's kind of the general position I have. Is I
Okay.
understand it's frustrating, but I think that what is even more, I think where people's frustrations should be driven is more so on the design of the gearing system itself and the reward system itself rather than boosting, which is a consequence of that system. But again, hopefully we're going to be circling back to that eventually.
All right. I so I want to peel a couple little layers off that because, like you said, it was a layered question, and you kind of hit a bunch of different layers there. So I have to ask up front, do you feel that there's a difference between boosting for real money or boosting for gold, or is that on the same level because it's just boosting?
I think it's the same. I mean, the purpose and the outcome are exactly the same, right? Like the purpose for any sort of boosting, whether or not be gold or real money, is to gain rating, and the consequences, which most people would paint as negative, occur in either one of those situations. I really don't differentiate between the two that much, and
Mm-hmm.
again, because of the WoW token, that distinction is very, very blurry now.
Yeah.
In the past, it was really rare actually that people did, at least in my memory, that people did gold boosts. I think,
No, it was.
I mean, anecdotally, in TBC, I remember when I was a little kid, I would buy 5v5 wins from one of the highest rated teams on my server because you just join their roster, play a few games, get your X amount of wins for points that week, and that was just the fastest way to gear a character back in the day. It was just buy 5v5 wins if you're on an alt or something. Also, anecdotally, like I myself did, I guess, so to speak, a gold boost when I was 14 years old. And my guild sold a Amani War Bear. I mean, bear sales were very common in Zul'Aman back in
They
TBC.
were.
So, in any case, I think the phenomenon of selling boost for gold is relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it seemed in the past that the only way to get a boost or to sell a boost was through money, and I don't think people cared that much about gold in the past. I don't know why people care. This is just an aside, but I don't know why people care so much about gold right now in World of Warcraft. Like, what I've always wondered that. Like, what do people spend their gold on? But I mean, if you're a
Yeah,
PvP, what are you spending that gold on? Maybe like transmog, I guess. But
I guess.
you know, I don't know. In any case, I don't really see a differentiation between gold and money since it can feel a bit ambiguous when it comes to the WoW token.
Yeah, I that'll actually I'll agree with. I think, uh, but at the same time, we have to understand that one is technically considered perfectly legal in the eyes of Blizzard and how they run their game. So I
Yeah,
guess that's just an interesting thing. Um, I so I guess I should say I'm going to since you're going to run the neutral stance, I'm going to go bipolar and I'll do like a for and against. So I'll play devil's advocate depending whichever way you're leaning, I guess. Or
yeah,
as you
sure.
bring up things, I'll play a little bit devil's advocate for you. I think that one thing I'm definitely going to devil's advocate, which is something that I want to bring up. Actually, quick shout out to everybody who responded to all the posts that we put up and gave us information and their take. Wonderful conversations there on the forums and on the Reddit and just really appreciate all the feedback. And like I said, there's some people that put their necks out there because they know how some people in the community get and feel, and they talked about their personal experiences, which was I think really cool. One
Yeah,
thing that was brought up, and this one I'm actually going to agree upon is the it was a question of, is there a difference between boosting for gold through a gold boosting site or LFG or whatever, or going to somebody's Twitch and doing a subscription to then get to play with the person, and which essentially becomes a carry, which becomes a boost. So and
hmm
I think that there's no difference there. I think that's somebody that's just trying to grayscale, what is essentially a boost. It's a pretty cheap one, I'd say. It's not a
Well,
guaranteed time slot or anything like that. It's not a guaranteed rating. but you're still paying a subscription to then play with somebody that is highly skilled and will be carrying you for at least a period of time.
I have some disagreement with that. I think functionally, I agree. It does function as a boost.
Mm-hmm.
But it's without getting into too much of a you know conversation on epistemology or like language here. That I think it's every player's dream, every aspiring player's dream to be able to play with their heroes, so to speak, right? Imagine a young kid
Mm-hmm.
being able to get pitching lessons from like Randy Johnson or someone, right? Like I'm saying that I don't even know who the modern MLB pitchers are, but you know what I mean. Imagine
Yeah.
getting soccer, or as the Europeans call it, football lessons from a a, a famous player, and say you go to a soccer football conference and a famous player is there, and for $25 you can kick the ball with them for 5 minutes. I think I'm completely fine with someone playing with a streamer, especially because I mean typically it's fun to play with streamers. It's fun to be on stream, and I think like that sort of if we want to call it boosting, I think that boosting is the least harmful form of
Sure.
boosting there is. And I think once you kind of give a structure to that experience, I think that's when you start running into the real problems. Once sort of the monetary transaction is a bit more right structured and organized, and that there's a starting point and an ending point, and there's sort of this sort of almost antisocial okay, let's queue, okay, we're done aspect to that. I think that's where the problems really start to illuminate. But when it's just like a streamer, or when it's a viewer wanting to play with a streamer, I have no problem with that sort of experience, because I think it harms the least amount of people. And I think for the person who's having that experience, it's really fun. It's really fun to play with X streamer who you've
Yeah.
been watching for the past few years.
I will agree with that, except for the fact that they take them into rated. They could easily do the same thing either in skirms. They could easily take the person into
Sure.
skirms and do that and have just as much fun. You still have that experience of playing with your streamer without the rating that's tied to that, and how that also impacts other people that are losing rating to that.
Yeah, and as just quickly as an aside,
Mm-hmm.
I really wish this is good. I feel like I'm asking. What was that expression? I want to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Whatever that expression is. I really wish now that they have some sort of solo queue system,
Right.
with air quotes around solo queue. I really wish there was a duo queue system. Like it'd be fun to have that sort of same experience with just another person.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's what the point of 2v2 is. But I wish you could have something similar to that, maybe with 5v5. Maybe they could bring back 5v5 and have some experience like that. In any case, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
The end result is essentially the same as boosting, and I completely understand that.
So actually, you kind of bring it that there's a good point there. And it was right there, and it just like the femoral thread just kind of flew out of my brain as I was saying that. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So the feelings behind it. So I guess let's dig at that. We're kind of all over the place, and I get that, but
Sure.
I think it's true to experience, or true to say that while, as you said, boosting isn't really a victimless crime. Like there's somebody on the other side of that arena that is trying to get better. Like they're a team that they've formed each other. They're trying to go in there to get rating, and now all of a sudden they're facing a much more geared player who is doing likely some gimmicky setup, some gimmicky talent, covenant, whatever build to allow them to be able to win essentially a 1v2, because they're really not counting on that other person that's playing with them, right? So I think that's really the part where that's one part where a lot of people get upset by boosting, is when you're already having to go slug through LFG to get a
Yeah.
team to then go into arena to then face against this person is going to overpower you, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then you lose your rating, and then chances are the person that you're playing with that you sat for who knows how long in LFG to set up a team with is gonna just drop group and run away, and so now you're down rating and you're out of time, right? Like,
Again, yeah, I think it's such a layered issue, and I truly believe that at the core of the issue is just the reward system in general. The
mhm.
fact that rewards are gated behind incremental rating benchmarks really creates this desire, right? Where you have your base item level conquest gear and you don't feel good having that base item level conquest gear. You want that challenger upgrade, you want that rival upgrade, you want that duelist upgrade, you want that elite upgrade.
Mhm.
And so you're always wanting something more as a player, especially considering the fact that the World of Warcraft PvP is competitive. You're playing against other players who have in many cases better gear than you. And
Mhm.
so the question becomes, and I think the anxiety that really is woven into the this hatred towards boosting is just an anxiety of the gearing system. I think the fact that you have so many layers of rewards in World of Warcraft PvP in a competitive game which should on its surface feel fair but at sometimes doesn't feel fair because your opponents have better gear than you. I think like that is pretty much where the problem lies. And I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I don't think there would be as much boosting at lower ratings if there wasn't such a crazy division in item levels
Oh yeah.
between lower rated gear. I think that the fact that you have people who are willing to, I mean, PvE players, I hear this all the time in certain circles, Discord circles where people are talking about their boost. I just did a gold boost. They always say, oh, these PvE players are willing to spend, millions of gold to get to 1600.
Yep.
And, it's, I think you wouldn't have this experience queuing into higher rated players at 1600 rating if there wasn't rewards tied to being 1600. I think, you know, the I think ultimately right now in Shadowlands, the division of eye levels between gear upgrades is the primary cause of this explosion of boosting at lower ratings. And I think, we can talk about boosting at upper ratings because I think that is kind of where things get more complicated
Mhm.
and where even more damage is dealt. But I think for the lower ratings, I think, it's a completely a result of the gearing system itself.
But at the same time, this is going to be hard. Harder than I thought, trying to play devil's advocate on you. I'm trying to formulate this, and at the same time, yeah. Sorry. So I think the flip side to that though is the fact that a lot of people, they want to have that higher gear. They want to feel that power. I've run into a number of players in our time on the podcast where they've expressed that if there was no gear differential and it was just based on skill, they wouldn't PvP, because if they can't lay the smack down and get that endorphin rush or the serotonin rush out of doing that, then they're not going to do it. And so I, in a way, that's the part of the reason why I'd say a number of people, there's the people that PvP for the whole skill value, but there's a large number of people who PvP just to, at the end of the game, cry how they pwned that noob, or they laid the smack down, or they laugh about how they crushed somebody in a 100-0 in two GCDs, right?
Yeah, I think, but those types of players typically aren't playing like arena competitively. I think that mindset
I
is more
completely
like,
disagree. I completely disagree. I think
I
there's people that are doing that. There's people that they will get themselves up to whatever rating, and then they'll crash their rating to go back down to a lower bracket just to smack people around and have fun and laugh about it. And they're not even boosting; they're just doing it for giggles.
Mm. I mean, and from my perspective, and this is just, I think, the general perspective of like more serious competitive players is, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, from my point of view, and I think anyone who cares about the competitive integrity of the game, I think putting people on an even playing field in a competitive game is ideal. And I think what the different tiers of gear do is they create passively this feeling of unfairness.
Oh yeah.
And that feeling is only amplified by the fact that you have people doing boosts as a result of that system.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to recognize, and I think for the most part too, like the serious competitive players, they do not care whatsoever about gearing systems. Like they don't care what the system looks like. They just want to log in, have the best in slot gear, have their opponents have the best in slot gear, and have a good arena match. Right? They just want to play ball, so to speak.
Yep.
So I think I really wish there was a way to satisfy both player bases. But I don't think the answer is to have this many tiers of gear. I think if you were to separate, if we were to go back and look at older systems, the only upgrades were maybe weapons, right? I think, what was it in Missa Pandaria? There was 2,200 weapons. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember what it was like in MOP. In Wrath, I think shoulders were 2K, weapons were 1,800, and that was pretty much it in terms of
Yeah.
upgrades. I don't remember. But in any case, it wasn't your entire gear set. It was just maybe one or two pieces. And I think now, because your entire gear set can be upgraded, I think that's where it really starts to feel a bit unfair. And that,
Mm-hmm.
again, that's why boosting, I believe, is so prevalent, because it's no longer an instance of, oh, I'm missing one of my best in slot pieces. It's a question of, oh my gosh, I'm missing all of my best in slot pieces because I don't have that rating.
True.
And so, I think again, I wish I could talk to one of these players who goes and gives tanks rating to Poe noobs at lower rating, but I think that to me sounds more toxic than boosting. Jeez,
Oh yeah.
on its surface, that to me that sounds more nefarious than any sort of boost I've ever heard of.
Totally is.
Um,
Well,
but yeah, I wish there was ways to satisfy both camps of players for the gearing system. Um, in any case, I'll circle back to my position that RMT and gold boosting are a direct result of this convoluted gearing system we have in Shadowlands.
well, and so I think yes, the amount that's going on right now is a direct result, but let's go back to let's admit the fact that this has been around for ages. I mean, it's been around since
Yeah,
before the gearing has been around. So I think really, I think that's one of the layers is that our real money transaction, real money trading for a, an achievement, right? Essentially, is to reach an achievement that has uh, a reward tied to it, be it achievement points, be it amount, be it gear, uh, be it just that banner, the title that you can put over top of your head, and there there are the people that have the time and the skill and the energy to sit and grind through all of that on a day-to-day basis to reach those attainable levels. And there's the people that don't have the time for it but have the money for it and are
right.
willing to pay for that, because and maybe they do have the time but they don't have the skill. uh, I will.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, to quote the goblins in World of Warcraft, like "time is money, friend." And I was gonna say, like, let's be honest with ourselves. World of Warcraft is a massive time investment.
Yep.
no matter, I mean, this has been the case for every single expansion. I don't know if it's better or worse now. I would have to really think about that. But I think right now the time it requires to maintain and upkeep your character is pretty high. I mean, it's always consistently been high. And if you work 40 hours a week and you have like a family or something, and you just want to have some time to play PvP
Mm-hmm.
every on the weekends or something, it kind of makes sense why people would want to buy a boost, because it's like, oh dang, I don't have time to do all of these little chores and to really devote all of my energy to maintaining my character.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to sort of speed run my way to get those upgrades. And I think it's just ultimately, if anything requires time, it can be monetized. And I think World of
Yep.
Warcraft is no exception. And I think what is specific to World of Warcraft that is not necessarily specific to other games is that there is so much time you have to spend not playing the competitive mode in order to play the competitive mode, right? In
Yeah.
order to play Arena, you have to do your chores,
Yep.
right? If you want to have a good Arena experience, you have to do your chores. It's unfortunate. I personally wish it was different. I understand why it's that way. I understand people like to do chores sometimes, but for some people, that is not necessarily an option. So, a boost or whatever, gold boost, RMT boost, whatever it be, it just is a way
Mm-hmm.
to sort of bridge that gap.
It's actually funny that that was actually some of the comments of some of the people where they're like they play their tunes at a fairly high level, their main, but whenever it comes to alts, the idea of taking an alt and grinding them through all the renown and everything, and then having to grind through all the conquest to get them to a competitive enough level, they just buy the boost. They buy the boost just to get to 1600 or 1800 or whatever, just so that they have the conquest, they have that gear, so that then they can move forward with it and not lose all that all that time and drag their friends through it too.
Yeah.
So, but again, I remember I just want to bring this up. There was another person that commented how they boost. They admitted to boosting. They don't agree with it. They don't like it, but they do it because they make cash.
Right.
and it's lucrative. I think one person was saying, just to throw some numbers out there, there's one person saying over on the EU side, this is anecdotal, that a person who is a known RBG booster was making tens of thousands of dollars a month boosting. And that's why even after the big ban wave, we talked about it on the show, there's a big ban wave that happened over on the EU side, and all it did was slow things down for about 2 weeks, and these players went and got themselves new accounts and I don't know, life or whatever, but did whatever they needed to do to get a tune all the way up to level and start grinding enough, and then they're boosting again. So
I want to bring up a point that might make me sound like an elitist, but I think it's a point worth mentioning. And I wrote this on the show notes, and I think boosting is kind of analogous to real life crime. And what I just mentioned, that how boosting is a result of systems being broken, at least in my opinion. I mean, crime is kind of the same thing, right? If your political system, whatever. I mean, you have systems in society, and if they're broken, you're going to have more crime, because crime is a result of systems being broken. Not all the time, but I mean, typically, I mean, generalizing, that's kind of why people commit crimes. Something else is going wrong. So I think just like in real life, there's kind of tiers to the severity and the impact of boosting, and I think, like, at least how I like to perceive it, and again, this might make me sound like a massive elitist, is you have sort of the people doing high volumes of petty crimes. So this is mean that the person doing the RBG boosts.
Mhm.
They probably do a ton of sells. Like every day they're doing like a sell to 1600, a sell to 1800. Like they're focusing primarily on lower ratings, get as much money as humanly possible. And I think that sort of boosting tends to affect the most amount of people, but it stings the least. And I think what I mean by that is if you go to there was a study done by Ludus Labs.
Mhm.
uh, I think it was in season 1, it might have been from season 2, analyzing how many games approximately were games queued into boosters. And I think across the entire ladder it was around like 10% of games, if in arena. So 10% of your arena games you're probably queuing into some sort of booster. Um, and I think most of those
Okay.
boosters are these high volume boosters. They're doing things to, sells to 1600, sells to 1800. It affects the lower ratings, but it doesn't necessarily, and this is where I'm gonna sound like an elitist, it doesn't necessarily interfere with your ability to improve as a player. And what I mean by that
True.
is if it's only 10% of games, as long as you have like a 60% win loss, that's not really going to affect you too much.
No,
But
I was going to counter
yeah,
there just quickly is that that's a skewed. I'll say that's a skewed metric or a skewed statistic because if you're talking about all the games throughout all the 24/7 games that happen within a season, 10% sounds like a really small number. But if all you're doing is playing during prime time and all the boosts are happening during prime time, that if you're that's like 100% of your games are going to be against a booster.
I don't think it would be not nearly 100% of games. I mean, that would be a massive oversight in like data collection. Like I think even if it was 20%, so say it's double,
Okay.
right? That'd be very charitable to say it's, you know 20% of games. That means still for the majority of games you're playing, you're not going to be playing against boosters. And it's probably, and this is where I'm going to sound like an elitist. Overall, it's not really going to hurt your experience as a player in terms of being able to get those gear upgrades, being able to get those rewards. It's going to definitely hurt, but it's not going to hurt too much because it's going to be 10 or at worst 20% of your games. And so, as long as you can maintain a positive win loss outside of those games, then I think you're okay. I think, and again, just like real life crime, I think things tend to get worse as you go up in rating. And I think, just like, high profile crimes are very like just fucking just awful. I just cursed. um
Yeah.
high rated or high rated crimes, high profile crimes are very very very, the consequences of those are can be extremely awful. I think the consequences of high rated boosts are where you really start to run into problems. And I think rank 1 boosting is the ultimate example of that, because rank 1 is a finite number.
Yeah.
you know the 1800 achievement is not a finite number of people who can get the 1800
Mm-hmm.
achievement, right? As long as you can get above 1800, you can get those gear upgrades. But
Yeah.
I think where you really run into problems is when you start running into rank 1 boosts, which do happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think to a lesser extent, gladiator boosts. And so I think the higher you go up in rating, that's where the problem really amplifies, because it really starts to interfere with people's with goals that are truly exclusive. And with rank 1 boost, it stings. It would definitely sting if
Oh
you're,
yeah.
on that cusp, and the only reason you don't get your rank 1 achievement is because some booster got the achievement instead. I think that's where things really sting. Of course, that is a very small amount of the player base, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely worth mentioning that the higher you go up, at least in my opinion, the sort of worse the boosting, the negative consequences of boosting are for the players who it affects.
No, I'll actually agree with that. Because I mean, we see it all the time when and the season rolls around, and next thing you know, you see social media people screen capping the ladders, or some website that tracks wins and losses and playtime, and points out the win traders, right? They're up there in I think there's a forum post just recently because a team, I think they're like something ridiculous. It was like 3 CR below cutoff or something, and they missed rank 1 because they were the 3 CR below, and there's like they called upon the community to support them so that the devs would give them rank 1. But yeah, and that would seriously, that, I mean, that would be equivalent to not making a cut onto, again, let's go back to professional esports, not being able to make the cut onto the football team because somebody's daddy bought their child, or some person, not even some person bought their way into the football club, and you got cut even though you're a skilled player.
Do you know what's really ironic about this?
What?
This happens in college sports all the time, and I'm not even joking. They're for college sports programs. They're called boosters. There are people
Seriously?
who are willing to spend a lot of, yes. There's people who are affiliated. They might be alumni of the university. They might be very rich. They can, give money to sports programs within the university. And in some cases, if they have children who play the same sport,
Yep.
those children, their children will make the sports team because their parents are boosters. And it's just kind of funny how that's the same word, but it happens in real life too. With my university, the university I went to, there's currently a player on the basketball team. He's a talented basketball player. He's not a starter. I don't think he's played a game, but his parents just happen to be very high profile boosters within the university community. So it happens in real life too. And right, there's a few years ago there was that massive celebrity scandal where like some celebrities were getting their children into universities by essentially paying off like the admissions departments. And so this sort of boosting happens in real life too. It's just, not necessarily the hottest topics, right? People aren't up in arms about it, but it's not to say it's not important, but and it's not to undermine the anxiety of the World of Warcraft crowd who's has negative feelings towards this. It's just kind of ironic that this sort of thing happens in real life all the time.
I think that is ironic. Well, it isn't ironic. I think that pulls to the free market society. I'm not saying, I mean, maybe this happens in other places around the world, but I'd say with USA being the pinnacle of a free market society, supposedly, that's kind of, it would lend that the same thing would be happening there, where the people, if you have the money to pay for it, you can pay for it, right?
Right.
I would say the real life example would actually kind of also lend to, I guess, one of the counter arguments that I'm going to reiterate here that I read somewhere else is, one person saying, what does it really matter? I mean, this is all just pixels anyways. I mean, really, people are paying real money to get an achievement that only exists in a game as pixels. Yeah. I'd say the emotional investment that people put into this game makes it real enough that I think that's that's the two-edged sword. That's the Occam's razor, if you will, of the video game, is that people are putting their hard-earned money into a video game because they're that emotionally invested into wanting that thing. And if they can't achieve it through their own skill, they will buy that achievement if they can, because they put that much value into it. And that's, that's what value is, right? It's our emotional, what we emotionally want, to a point that we're willing to put a dollar value to that. I guess. So
Right.
let's actually that even brings up the other point of talking about business, talking about jobs, talking about this other stuff. You had a good point that you'd written down on the show notes here, and I want to give you the floor on this. Is
Yeah.
the conversation about earning money playing a video game?
Yes. Yeah, and this is something that actually, when I tweeted about, if anyone had any questions or comments about this, someone responded. Well, I mean, the main point of they said the main point of the discussion should be, or needs to be, just because you're good at a game, does that give you the right to feel that you should be able to live off of it? And I think this is a very interesting conversation, and I think the boosting conversation really plays into, eh, honestly, a childhood fantasy, a childhood
Yeah,
desire that we have to be able, or at least some people have, to be able to make a living playing video games. I think
right.
that, you know, in a vacuum, I think that's something that we should generally support. Like, okay, if you can find a way to make money spend playing video games, then maybe we should try to encourage that. I think it kind of, right, it gets uh, a bit complicated when it comes to boosting, but I think in general, when it comes to our aspirations in life as gamers, and I saying the word gamer always makes me cringe for some reason. But
Why?
as gamers, you're right. We I don't know. It's just it sounds funny to me. I don't know why, but I think as gamers, we all have this desire to really be able to spend our time doing what we want to do, which is to play games and being able to make a living doing that. And I
Yeah.
think when we're kids, we kind of have this desire, and I think boosting sort of plays into that childhood fantasy of being able to make money playing video games. So I think it's kind
Well,
of difficult to detach yourself from that.
I want to point so big. I don't know if you were told it. I know my parents said this to me: is find something you like to do, and if you like to do it,
Yeah.
if you turn it into a job, then your job isn't work. You're just making money doing something you enjoy doing.
Yes.
And I
Uh
think
huh.
that, like, I wonder how many kids were told that, and they're like, "Well, I like to play video games." And it's like,
Yeah. And and yeah, I mean, I think right now, I'm curious to what the average age is of the PvP player base, but I think it's honestly younger than we would think.
mhm.
And I think like a lot of the people who are probably doing boosts and probably you know selling boosts, probably younger people who are either in high school or in college, and they need a way to make money. Maybe they want to buy a new pair of sneakers if they're in high school, or maybe they just need food, honestly, if they're in college or something. I sometimes I also cringe about this idea of like the broke college student who eats ramen, but it's true for some a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it gives a way to bridge um, this n- desire to make money, and this sort of, again, this childhood fantasy of being able to make money off of playing video games in a very convenient way. And I I mean, I played WoW throughout college, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was a good thing. And I But, if I needed to make money during college, or if anyone needed to make money during college and they happened to be good at WoW, it kind of maybe it would make a bit of sense why they'd want to do a boost,
Hmm.
because it's something they already kind of are good at. It doesn't require them to fill out a job application and you know leave their dorm or whatever. It's just a convenient way to make money,
Hmm.
um,
You get to
and
pick the
I think,
hours. You get
yeah,
to pick the job. You get to, yeah.
right, right, right. You don't have to. It doesn't really interfere too much with your day to day activity. So I think that's kind of a difficult thing too. Is that, geez, it's so convenient. right? Why?
Mm-hmm.
You could work, a 6 to 11 shift at the end of your classes, working at, I don't know, Subway. People tend to use McDonald's as
Sure.
general.
Or
I don't know why
Starbucks.
everyone
Yeah,
says yeah, right. Wherever it is, you could work that, or you could just log on WoW, do a
exactly.
boost to 1800, and you don't have to leave your house. So I understand that it kind of is a convenience for the people doing the boosts, and
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense in a lot of cases.
I don't necessarily agree with it with the age metric that you're using though. While it yes, there's probably some young players that are doing the boosting, but I think the business model that we're seeing at the level that's being used on a lot of these websites today is much older. I think like almost to the point where it's like, you see the street urchins and they'll have like some old, the little kids are the ones running through the street pickpocketing everybody, doing the petty crime,
Yeah.
but it's still some adult somewhere that's controlling them and getting it all put together.
Well, yeah, I think in general the boosting websites and boosting communities are probably organized by older players and players who've been around for a longer time. But yeah, I think the majority of work though is being done by younger players. And again, I think this is just to kind of segue into another topic of discussion is like, you know, our just like the comment on Twitter I received, are
Mm-hmm.
just because you're really good at a video game does that mean you're entitled to make money from it? And I think kind of piggybacking off of that criticism is this idea that are AWC earnings enough to make money professionally playing World of Warcraft? And I think there are multiple ways to answer this question. On on its surface, no. That
Mm.
unless you're winning every single tournament, playing the AWC is not enough to make a living playing WoW. Just AWC alone. And I'm not meaning that to be a criticism of Blizzard. We'll probably talk about that in a sec. But outside of streaming, there aren't really that many avenues to make money as a quote unquote professional player in World of Warcraft.
True.
Um, so that I think that's another issue, is there's just not really the infrastructure to really monetize playing WoW
Mm-hmm.
outside of tournaments, and streaming. So if you
So
can't play in a tournament or win a tournament and you can't stream, I think it's kind of difficult.
So I can't play devil's advocate on this one because I have to agree with you. This was again another topic that's it's been said a bunch of other places is how professional players say that they can't earn a living off of the winnings from World of Warcraft. And one of the counterpoints to that is like, well, just stream and make content, but
Yeah.
not every person is entertaining.
Yeah.
Not every person has the know, like, yeah, they know how to make macros. Yeah, they know how to forward think, quickly be able to look at a screen, get in all that information in a split second and make a quick decision, know what you as an elder player is going to do and counter that play and get ahead of you. But that doesn't mean that they can be entertaining.
Yeah.
Or even put together a video. I mean, well, Big, you make videos for skill
Yeah.
caps.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much skill does it take to put together a video?
So to contextualize this a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I was a college tutor, like a professional college tutor for 3 years. I have been in video making and video editing for almost 10 years. And I've been a high rated WoW player. And so I have basically an advantage, so to speak, in this domain that people otherwise wouldn't have. It's definitely hard to make high quality content that
Hmm.
is both educational and entertaining. And I don't think everyone is cut out for that. I mean, not to hype myself up too much, but I think like I have distinct advantages in many cases for making the sort of content that people generally don't have. Like, I think it's hard to really have the knowledge and the I guess the education to be able to produce high quality educational material, or even just entertaining material for World. It doesn't have to even be educational. Producing entertaining material for World of Warcraft is very difficult, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
been very few people who've truly been able to make it work. I mean, we can say, oh, X player did it, and oh, I don't want to name drop too much, but we all know the name of some WoW content creators, and but they're far and few between. And I urge people to just go to YouTube right now, like legitimately go to YouTube right now, type in WoW PvP and hit search. There are very few content creators that are getting enough views to make a living doing that. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, it's kind of sad. You can't, unless you really know what you're doing, you're really good and experienced, already have like a fan base, you can't really make money making
No.
WoW PvP videos. It's just a
I,
sad reality of things.
I want to point out, I think there's an assumption that if somebody has a channel and they have a few people watching their videos, they're going to start getting a paycheck, not realizing that several years ago YouTube changed their criteria, and like literally you need to have thousands and thousands of viewers on a like and multiple reactions, and like there's a whole bunch of other metrics to it before you even start making a living off of the videos. It's
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
simple as just throwing up a video and get a couple thumbs up and all of a sudden a paycheck's
So
going to show up. So
let me put this into perspective. All right,
okay.
like actual monetary value perspective. So the World of Warcraft official channel has 1.6 million subscribers.
Okay.
7 days ago, they released a video called Five Specs You Have to See for PvP in 9.2, featuring
Mm-hmm.
Super Ts.
Yeah.
And this is any sort of diss on Super Ts. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah. No.
So that video currently, that was made a week ago, has 23,000 views. And so if you want to know how much money a video made, you take every 1,000 views, so 23, and multiply it by approximately 4. So this video made less than $100, and it is made by the official World of Warcraft channel. So basically, in 1 week, the single video that probably took a day to produce made $100, and it's a high quality video from a
Mm-hmm.
multi-million-dollar company. And so,
Yeah.
like, I mean, the budget for this video is probably really high, and the payoff is only $100. And it's on the official World of Warcraft channel with 1.6 million subscribers. And so unless you're part of this like select few WoW content creators on YouTube, you're not going to really be making any money in it, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate reality of things.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also because lean to the fact, I mean, the gone are the days of Wrath of the Lich King where there was 20 million subscribers and everybody was watching everybody. WoW Movies was making some high quality drama machinimas and all this stuff. Like, I think
Yeah.
I think on it, not to slam World of Warcraft as much as I love the game, but if you really wanted to make it as a content creator, there's a bunch of other games out there that would do better.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
so we talked about content creation, entertaining, educational. I think anybody who plays and knows the game really well can easily educate on their point. Can they make it educational, or actually can they make it entertaining while educational? That's really hard, like you said. And I'm sure you can also point out, I agree that anybody, just because a person can have a great idea and they can put it out there and they might get like 5 views, but in the meantime, some other video out there is going to get 1,000 views because it just has that I don't know, that weird thing that catches everybody, and otherwise it's not a great video. It doesn't teach anything. It's not really all that funny, but it just has that one little thing that gets thousands of views instead, right?
Yeah.
Where am I going with that? I think the other part to it is there's the players that want to do really well. They want to compete. They want to be professional. They want to play on AWC. Of that, a very small sect actually are willing to develop a brand and everything. But in the meantime, I
Yeah.
think there's a large number of players that just want to play the game. They just want to be that, get that number on the scoreboard and make that be the feather in their hat that they want to put in. That's the whatever, and they don't want to. They don't want to make content. They don't want to have their name out there. They don't want to play on the AWC as much as they would. They probably say in some Discord of their own how they would totally beat every single player that's on the AWC because they're that awesome. But they don't want to. They just want to be that name on a board, and that's good enough for them, right?
I think part of this too is one point that people sometimes forget is if you want to do any competitive sport or esport professionally, it has to be the only thing you do. And there are very few exceptions to that. So there was this movie that was made based on the NFL quarterback Kurt Warner, who he basically was he was a grocery store employee who tried out for an NFL team and made the NFL team. But that's just like a 1 in a million, like, right? That doesn't happen every day. And I think for the majority of people who are playing any sport or even esport, that is the only thing they're doing. Yep. And I say only, they're doing other things obviously, but you really have to devote a lot of time to be the best at a video game. And I think people who are maybe anti-boosting, they sometimes forget about that, is that if you really want to be, the highest echelon of PvPer, you have to just play WoW like all the time. There's very few exceptions to that.
Agreed.
The majority of people who are playing in the AWC, they are either streamers or they have some ability to, whether that not be their parents who are able to support them. They have some support mechanism, either that they've created for themselves through streaming or through their parents, whatever it might be. They have some ability to play WoW all the time. And I think that is the sort of difficulty when it comes to playing WoW professionally, is you really have to make it your entire existence. And
yep.
If boosting is a way that you can sustain yourself off that, I mean, it makes sense why people would go down this route, because if you want to be the best at WoW, you have to play WoW all the time. And you can't obviously earn a living while playing WoW all the time, right? Passively, you have to find some way to monetize that, unfortunately. And boosting is one part of that.
Okay, so hold on. So now you're saying boosting is okay if it's for the professionals because they need to support themselves?
I'm not necessarily saying it's okay. I'm saying there really isn't an infrastructure in place to allow people to be hyper competitive with World of Warcraft, while also being able to earn and make a living, right? If you're not a streamer, it's really hard. Like it's impossible.
And like we've already said, like there's the number of people out there that are high ranked, they're streaming, and there's 3 that are like in the top, 300 people, 1,000 people watching. In the meantime, if you scroll down low enough, there's a whole bunch of really high rated players, and they're all like 1 viewer, 2 viewer, 3 viewer.
Yeah.
Right. So I get that.
Exactly.
All right. So let's peel that. So here's a question. I just wanted to differentiate the two, because we know that a person who's a professional player is using the finger quotes, is a person, let's say, that plays AWC, right?
Sure.
But in the meantime, there's a number of people that have put in, I'd say, the same professional amount of time, just not doing that competition. that on-screen competition, but they're doing the in-game competition, maintaining rank 1 levels, multiple alts over on the
Mm-hmm.
ladder. Now, should those people be considered professional as well, or are they amateur because they haven't actually signed up for the official competitive tournaments?
Well, again, I don't want to drop any names. I'm not going to try to expose people, but I think that the people who are doing the high volumes of boosting are not the same people who are competing in AWC tournaments. I think
Oh,
those are
fully.
vastly different groups of
Mm-hmm.
players, and there's a reason for that, because if you get caught doing, RMT boosting, you're banned from competing in the AWC. So you have to pick and choose the route you want to go through. And I think both routes have, their positives and negatives, right? With AWC, there's kind of, it's like the more honorable route, I guess. But it's definitely more challenging, right? If you want to
Well,
make money, you have to win, and you're
I
competing against the best players in the world.
I have to counter you
But
because
yeah,
Looney's a BlizzCon
sure.
champion, and he's not playing AWC because he got caught doing real money transactions and got banned forever.
Yeah, yeah, but that's just like one player. I think
Okay, good point. Yeah,
the
yeah,
majority. You remember I was talking about how there's like different tiers of crimes. I think the majority of boosters are not AWC competitors. They're just random gladiator or even rank 1 players. I think in the majority of cases it's gladiator,
mm-hmm.
or even people who don't even have gladiator doing boosts for gold.
Fair. Yeah,
So those people are never gonna touch the AWC.
true.
I think like as you go higher in rating, that's again where you get sort of more serious criminals, so to speak. But it's a significantly smaller group of players. So
Yeah,
again, the
yeah.
question becomes, who is doing more harm? Is it the swashbucklers at 1800 rating, doing the gladiators doing the boost to 1800, or is it the the top dogs at rank 1 and
I
AWC level? Like, who's doing more harm? I'm not even sure. Um,
I think honestly the whole time it's all doing harm. Uh, just because
yeah,
it just to flip that side, it's all doing harm because at the end of the day, there's a person on the other side who is losing their rating. That's actually trying hard.
yes,
They're trying to compete, thinking they're going on an even foot, and here they are being set up to lose right off the bat, which is
yeah,
demoralizing. It's emotionally demotivating. Uh, you lost rating, you have to gain back. How do you even learn from something like that, though? If you got completely squashed in some freaky maneuver that you didn't even, maybe you might learn that how that maneuver worked. Um, but if there's no counter to it, like there's no learning lesson there, right?
yeah,
You
and
just bite the bullet.
I think so. Sometimes people tend to make the argument, well, if they're playing against better players, they'll have something to learn from it. And I think that is true in like maybe 10% of cases. I think like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine being I don't know, 6 years old, like learning basic arithmetic, and then being like teleported into like a college classroom where like Dilly Poo is teaching you like differential equations. Like, you're not going to be able to understand or learn anything from that experience. Not saying that low
Well,
rated players are like 6 year olds, but
yeah.
you get the point. Like, you don't really learn anything. Like, learning is a gradient
Oh yeah.
experience, right?
That
It's
so let's take that. So you learned how to play chess last week,
yeah,
and now I put you up against a grandmaster chess master. Are you gonna learn anything
yeah,
from that match? No,
right. No, of course not. Yeah.
no.
And so
I
yeah,
think
I think
yeah. Go.
I was gonna say, I think that excuse is just a really lame excuse. Really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I I think again, as I described earlier, there's there's in general this anxiety with playing World of Warcraft, and I think it's
Oh yeah.
due primarily to the rewards-based system and how everything is so separated. Rating brackets are separated, rewards are separated. In all throughout that experience, you feel really bad. Like you get penalized so much for losing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I don't know if you've ever conceptualized it this way, but when you lose a WoW arena, it feels twice as bad as
Mm-hmm.
winning. The sort of the balance. Like when you lose a game, that means not only do you have to win your next game, but you have to win another game in order to get to the point where you would have been had you won that game. Had you won that game that you lost in the first place.
Yep.
So losing feels really, really bad in World of Warcraft due to the rating system, the MMR system, whatever. And not only does it affect your time temporarily, but it also affects your ability to get rewards, which in
Mm-hmm.
turn affects your ability to get rewards in the future. It's just like a compounding issue of losing sucks in WoW.
Mm-hmm.
Losing feels terrible in WoW for multiple reasons, and it feels exponentially worse when it's against a booster because it's like, wow, that was really unfair.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't have happened. And
Yeah.
I completely understand that.
All right. So, huh. So what would you? I don't want to do the what you change yet. Like not that one yet. But uh, how? Right. So let's take a look at um if we made we player base Blizzard if we made the AWC prize pool more advantageous, if it was bigger, let's say, do you think that would pull some of these players off of boosting and into AWC because they could earn worthwhile amounts of money even if they didn't do as well as they think they can?
Again, I don't think it would affect the petty crime. The petty crime
Mm-hmm.
is always going to exist in World of Warcraft. It's always going to be done by nameless faces who no one knows about. These low mid tier gladiators, even duelist rated players are who have no intention of ever playing in the AWC are going to continue to do boosts so long as it's available to them. I don't think that's
Okay.
ever going to change. That's been the case for as long as I can remember. I think, though, on the higher end of things, where the damage, I guess, is more acute. I think that's where having avenues to have players make more money would be more beneficial. I I I don't know how that would work, right? Like again, as I wrote in the show notes, money doesn't grow on trees.
Mm-hmm.
Where would that money and those resources come from? People like to say, "Oh, Blizzard is a multi-billion-dollar company," but that those billions of dollars are being distributed in many different directions all at one time, and so it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard to really distribute resources for one particular very small number of players. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, this. I don't
What,
want
what
to get like a little, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, because there's always the argument of like we need to increase the prize pools to give professional players their money's due for the money for the time they put in and everything. But I think you're right. Is that there's the people that will never join the AWC regardless of how much money they could earn there. Like barring like $1 million, and even then, I think you're right. They would rather just stick with the petty crime because maybe you're right. Maybe they're just like, at best a 2,200 player and able to boost below that and able to make their money with the petty crime, but they'll happily stay within that lane. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess then contrary to, or I guess the counterpoint to that is rather than trying to incentivize boosters to not boost, is there anything, I guess, other than changing the gearing, which I think is the simplest answer? Uh, is there a way to incentivize players from buying boosts. And I'm not sure if that's possible, because in a game where gear matters, and a game where gear in this deterministic manner requires or even if the gear isn't tied to achievement, just the ladder has achievements and rewards tied to that, aka the gladiator mount and stuff. I think even if they got rid of gearing, I feel like boosting would still happen, because there's some title, there's achievement points, and there's rewards tied to those achievements. Fair?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's so difficult. Also, fact that the player base in general has gotten significantly smaller over time.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, like finding people to play with is just in general harder these
Yeah.
days, and so
And one loss and they
that
all
makes
just leave anyways. So,
right, and so that makes the experience of even playing the game much more difficult. And then when you're
mm-hmm.
playing against a boost, it feels terrible. So I think again, I'd like to reiterate that it's just such a layered issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so many systems kind of interacting and collapsing into one, massive problem. And I think anyone who's being honest with themselves would admit that boosting is a problem. Like it certainly is a problem. I don't think that it's in any ways like in- represents any sort of integrity to doing a boost. I think it's it makes people feel bad about themselves. It makes people feel hurt. So I think and that might sound dramatic, but it's true, right? People feel hurt after losing in a way that
Yeah.
it seems unfair. So I I I don't know how to incentivize people from not buying boosts, but I think a good place to start, I'll say it again, is to rethink the reward system in World of Warcraft, because I think ultimately the reward system and WoW is the cause of this entire market for boosts.
Okay. So now I have to ask, is that your one thing you change? Or is there something else that, if you would actually were able to sit down right now with the board
Hell
devs?
yes. Hell yes. I've made this my one thing to change so many times throughout this podcast, and there's a good reason for it. I truly believe that there needs to be a way to bridge the gap between, again, these players who you described earlier who want to, progress their character and stomp noobs, and then the players who just want to have an honest competitive experience. And I think some form of gearing, whether or not be complete item level scaling, a PvP specific vendor who you can just freely buy pieces off of. I think there needs to be some way to make the gearing system itself more accessible to more players, because I don't think that having this many tiers of gear upgrades is any sort of semblance of a solution. And I think it just amplifies all the problems we've been discussing throughout this entire podcast. And so I think revamping the entire gearing system, making it quicker, more accessible, and reducing that anxiety of not being fully geared is the key to solving this issue.
Okay. Do you want to hear what my thought is?
Sure. Yes.
You sound so deflated. You're like, oh, sure, fine.
Uh,
Okay, Gerissar. All right. You know how they have the mentor program in WoW? So like when new players join, there's supposed to be a mentorship
oh yeah,
channel, and they can like,
yeah. There's
yeah,
people that they like kind of have these like weird icon above their heads, I
yeah,
think, right?
yeah,
Like,
and so
yeah.
it's
Okay.
people that have volunteered to be a mentor. They have access to a special channel, and they can help people, guide them, new players, guide them into World of Warcraft, so that the world doesn't seem so immense, so unbelievably challenging that they'll just like give up after level 20 or something like that. So I would like Blizzard to have a PvP mentorship, but this one is one you sign up for, and you can, and through it you can pay somebody for coaching, not boosting, but coaching, so that be it in-game play or whatnot. It would have to really be in-game play, but through that you're playing in more like a war game mode or something like that, because you wouldn't be able to play a live ladder. You know what I mean? So there's no actual rating tied to it, but you're still playing the game, doing the movements, and learning through conversation with a person who is going to be so the mentor can get value out of their time. The person gets value out of the time because they're learning, not just achieving some bar, right, for the next gear level or whatever. And and by that, it also means that they can't. It's not tied to actual rating because it's done inside of a war game scenario or a skirmishes scenario or something like that. So
yeah.
So would that get rid of boosting? I can't say, but I feel like that is something that is missing from the game that would probably diminish the number of coaching, boosting, carries, or self plays that happen.
Yeah, I think in general, it's such a complicated issue. Requires multiple. There's so many ways that there's so many causes of this problem, and I think it's a complete, just like real life crime, that there's so many
It is.
sort of there's so many ways that this interacts with other parts of the game, other parts of the community, and it's so difficult to give a single solution to this problem.
We can
Yeah,
try.
I think yeah, so it's worth trying, right? And I think in general, to what you just said, is WoW needs like but I don't know if it would be like a solo queue. I have no idea what it needs. It just needs a way to literally press play and just have an experience by pressing play. And I've said that's over and over and over, but that's one of the biggest problems with WoW is you can't do that. You cannot do that, and I think it's a big problem. There's no sandbox mode to try new things in World of Warcraft. There's no practice mode. There's none of that. It's the entire system is sort of intertwined with rewards, and I think a really good start, by the way, is making gear scale up in Solo Shuffle. I think that's a step in the right direction. I just think there needs to be 8 more steps in that direction to again make the game an easier learning experience, an easier gearing experience. And I mentioned this in the show notes, but like there's many similarities between World of Warcraft and Super Smash Bros. And without getting too much into that, I think the competitive scenes are relatively similar in size and age. And what's unique about Smash Bros is there is avenues for professional players to make money doing coaching, and it's very honest coaching because they can sit in a call with someone else and play against them in a 1v1 match, and that affects no one else. It doesn't harm anyone, right?
No.
No one, that person is getting boosted, so to speak, but it's not harming any other person. And so, right, if there would be some way to mirror that experience for World of Warcraft, I would be all for that. But right now, it doesn't seem like there is this huge demand for quote unquote coaching, and I think part of that is because there isn't really an infrastructure to do coaching.
I agree.
So that's to combine what we've discussed. I think that's a good compromise.
So you're trying to steal my one thing you changed? Is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
Apparently, yes.
That's right. I'll steal yours. I'll do the gearing change. That one was such
Yes.
an easy throw. I couldn't take it from you. All right, let's get into the events and talk about some other easy throws going on, and then we'll roll. Well, actually, we'll talk about the news. There's some other stuff we need to talk about, but events first.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
Yes, events. Quick. Nothing really new. Sorry. I guess one thing that is new, the Match Reno 10v10 RBG that we've been talking about, it got pushed to the right. It's now going to happen the 23rd and the 24th of April. They're still looking for more players. That's not the reason why it got delayed, though. It got delayed because a number of players, this is held on live, and a number of players don't have their tier sets. They don't have everything that they feel they need to be competitive, and there is so much anxiety about facing other teams that, because tier sets are so, they're just that much more powerful. So they asked for it to delay until the catalyst is in game, and they can at least ensure that everybody has their 2-piece that needs it. So. Other than that, we got the official Blizzard events. So we got 2 more cups of the AWC going on. We got 3rd cup this weekend coming up, and the 4th cup the weekend following, the 8th to the 10th. So if you haven't signed up for it yet and you really want to, highly recommend you sign up. I believe the cutoffs for these are Sunday nights. So this weekend's coming up, or it's already cut off. You can't get into that. So the last one's going to be the 4th cup if you want to play in it. Highly recommend. Go for it. Have some fun. At least you get on the TR. There's no requirements to get there other than, I think, don't have a black mark against your BNet account for like the last 3 months or something like that. So if you haven't been caught for boosting, you're good to go. And you can go on there, make a character, play some more games with some players, and at least enjoy that. So, and then following that, we got the MDI starting on the 15th of, oh, shoot, I have that wrong. I copy and pasted. MDI got pushed a week.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry about that. So that should actually be the 22nd. It's going to start on the 22nd of April. And then following that, it's going to be, everything's just going to cycle by a week. All right. Other than that, I'm not aware of any other events. I don't know. Do you know of any other events going on that we didn't cover yet? Big?
I don't think so. No, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, why don't we get into the WoW PvP news and talk about the other stuff that's going on in game other than boosting?
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right. Do you want to take the first one there, Big?
Yeah, so the AWC obviously has been ongoing for the past few weeks, and AWC Cup 1 finished on the 20th of March. And on the EU side of things, it was Team Kungarna, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, which is Chaz, Waz, Raikou, and Meh. They took first place in EU, and on the NA side of things, it was Kauai with Brain, Prev, Dizzy, and Ceralium, who won on North America. And the second cup finished over the weekend, and it was SK Gaming this time on EU, which is Asgrath, Z5, Maro, and Mercy. They took first place in EU, and then Team Liquid, which was Sidu, Mej, Tron, Samayam, took first place in North America. And one thing that was kind of unique about Cup 2 was that Kauai didn't win. They were a powerhouse. They've been a powerhouse team for the past, like 2 or 3 years in North America. And I think Golden Guardians was the team that eliminated them. I don't remember. Yeah, and so that was the first time that I think Golden Guardians had ever beat them in a tournament.
It was. They overcame their kryptonite. It was.
Yes.
It was game 5 nail biter. Oh man, you got to watch it. It was back and forth. It was such a good game.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I took away from you. I'm sorry. Yeah,
no worries. And then on top of that, there were some hot fixes posted last week. I don't know if there's anything significant. There was some people are freaking out about damage increases for, I think, Unholy DK and geez, what else were people freaking out about? Oh, Destro Warlocks, which are already obviously pretty strong right now in
Yep.
PvP.
So,
But I think a lot of that was PV specific tuning.
well, but there's no counter. There's been no counter
Yeah.
tuning. So Feral got a 3% increase, plus a bunch of abilities got upped. Beastmaster got a 3% increase flat across the board. Plus, their Beast Cleave now doesn't have it starts diminishing returns after a target cap of 8 instead of target. That doesn't matter in PvP. That's more for, I guess, RBGs. Let's hear. What's it? Ellie Shaman 5% straight across the board. Destro Warlock 5% straight across the board. And there's no counter tuning.
Yeah.
Like,
I
what?
mean,
There's no counter tuning.
yeah, I think though, I think there's probably this expectation that things might balance out, because it's hard to, it's okay when people see hot fixes like this, they think, oh, this is terrible, but it's just like a snapshot of the ladder, or the game as it currently stands. And I think maybe some of this will be sort of balanced out inevitably as people get higher item level in PvP. I have no idea. I'm just maybe speaking out of my butt, but in any case, when you see changes like this, I'm not too pessimistic about them, because I always presume that I have faith in the developers. Maybe that's wrong of me, but they presumably know more than we do. And
True.
so maybe there is a reason why there hasn't been any counter tuning, and we just
Yeah.
don't even know. Plus,
So
I mean, putting on my tinfoil hat for a second here, really quick, is I honestly feel like there's some hidden tuning that just happens internally that we don't know about in some cases. So who knows?
there's often some hidden changes that aren't announced and that we find out after the fact. That's happened a few times.
Yeah.
I won't disagree there. So yes, I hope that the devs actually do make some future. They can always make changes in the future, sure. There's a number of classes that have been very overpowered for a few patches now, a few seasons, and haven't really been tuned the way the community would expect them to be. So I think that's where the confidence is somewhat lost by the community, because we're still fighting against some very, very strong S+ tier classes that are just even more powerful now with all the stuff that's been happening in this season.
Right.
Does Unholy need a counter nerf? Arguably, probably not. I mean, 5% straight across the board. Effectively, that would probably bring them up a little bit higher on the tier list. Sure. Feral, that one kind of scares me a little bit, just with how strong Jungle Cleave was.
Yeah.
And it's not like Holy Priest has gotten any nerfs in PvP, so there's that. The rest of these, I mean, yeah, I'm not that. I mean, Ellie Shaman, and Destro, understanding Destruction Warlock is very strong right now. I would argue that some of their stuff is a little gimmicky, and so a 5% straight across the board damage buff is very PvE, but I'm suspecting it's not going to be seen. It's not going to be felt. There's not going to be much of a difference. You're either going to still die to 2 or 3 chaos bolts, because you're going to die anyways, or you're still going to be able to line the damage or counter the damage, and it's not going to make any difference, right?
Yeah. I think so. The way I view it is, geez, that show has been pretty bad or mediocre all expansion. Might as well let them have some fun. There's that one age-old meme of how Blizzard does balancing, and with they pass the sword around, and it's the Destro Warlock's turn to be broken, and that's, at least that's my mind. So that's my coping mechanism is, okay, yeah, sure, let them be strong. no big deal. No harm, no foul.
True. I do remember talking to a person at Blizzard at a BlizzCon, and I the conversation was around um, not just taking for face value what was being said in any of the forums, because almost everything said on the forums is said with a bias towards the person's personal what they play. So if they play a warlock, they want the warlock buffed. If they don't play if they play the warlock, they want that other class that nerfed so that they can then just pwn them,
Yeah.
right? Everything's
No,
taken
I
with the
mean,
bias of what you want to play.
oh my gosh! Without getting into too much drama, someone on Twitter was complaining about aspect of the turtle for hunters, saying it's such a bad cooldown. And knowing me, I just had to interject. I was like, "What? Aspect of the turtle, it might not be the best defensive cooldown, but Roar of Sacrifice sure has a good cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 minute, it's 20% damage reduction, and complete crit immunity. I personally think that's a really good cooldown, and I think on paper most people would agree. But I got some hunters who are angrily responding to me, telling me how I was stupid for not understanding the game. How dare I say Roar Sacrifice is a good cooldown? Like, what do I know? It's I don't understand the nuances of it. But I'm like, oh, take a second to
Oh,
think. 1 minute cooldown is pretty good as a DPS class.
yeah.
Like, geez, Louise.
A 1 minute wall is pretty good, and then I guess the thing is that when you're used to having a spell that makes you completely immune, like Turtle used to, and now it's no longer commune immunity, and you can die to it, that feels bad, and I think
Yeah,
I think that's really where it stems from.
yeah.
All right,
In any case, people are very attached to their character.
of course they are.
So,
Of course they are.
yeah.
I think that's about it really for PvP stuff. I don't remember seeing anything else. Everything was pretty much all raid, whatever. Actually, that does matter right now, because if you want your tier pieces, you're gonna have to raid. So, thankfully they're nerfing a bunch of the raids, so it's gonna be easier now. Speaking of RNG, the Great Vault. If you don't get a piece of gear you actually want in there, you can get tokens. They've upped the number of tokens you're going to get based on how many vaults you open. They're upping the amount that you can hold in your bag as a total, which is awesome. And they've added a 4 token, a socket. So you can purchase for 6 tokens a socket to put on a piece of gear. Not every piece of gear. Same as always. It's what's it? The head, the legs. Oh shoot, what is it? I'm brain farting the other pieces now. Help me.
I think it's like belt, neck.
Yeah.
I don't even remember, to be honest.
I just found it.
Remember.
There's helm, season 3 helm, neck, bracers, belt, or ring that does not already have a socket. So that should have been added actually today with reset in North America, tomorrow for EU. So if you have 6 tokens and you need a token or you need a gem slot, there you go. I question giving up a gear upgrade today for some tokens, just a gear slot. Or just to gem slot something. Something tells me that's a bad choice, but definitely see that being worthwhile in a few more weeks. Season 4. Did you see the announcement about season 4? Season 3 just started. Yeah, season 4 got announced. What the heck, man? What's up with this?
Yeah, it's coming later this year. I think that part of the announcement is Shadowlands is going to be lasting another year.
Yeah.
That's whatever. I mean, I think what's going to be fun is in 925, it's going to have cross faction queuing, which will be very. I think that'll be like a small little renaissance for PvP. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the pessimistic, grumpy side of me says that pretty much every single WoW expansion, for the most part, feels the same. Like there's very few differences between BFA and Shadowlands. If you ask me personally, I don't think the game has fundamentally changed that much. And
True.
so whatever. Shadowlands lasts another year as long as the meta changes a little bit. I'm okay with that personally, but I understand why people might be a bit frustrated with that. Completely
Yeah.
understand.
True. Uh, so yeah, they didn't give an exact time frame. I know they said so. Season 3 is going to last a normal amount of time. They didn't give an exact time frame as normal. Definitely expect this to be into season 4 be part of the 925. But I think you're right. I think the cross faction rating is going to definitely, or cross faction instancing is going to definitely do some changes. Speaking of which, that's live on PTR now. They have 925 live with some cross faction instancing. So if you want to go play around on it, go do that. In the meantime, they've added some accessibility updates. So mouse over macros baked into the game, click cast bindings baked into the game. Cursor scaling. You ever have a problem trying to find your cursor because you're old like me and blind? They now actually added so you can change the size of it. So you can make it bigger or smaller, depending, So, big, once you take off your sunglasses, maybe you can shrink the cursor back down.
That's right.
I kid. They added a few more additional controller supports. So I think that's pretty cool. So dust off those Xbox 360 controllers and have fun. Or Xbox One controllers.
Really quick. I don't know if we talked about this in the previous cast, but there was that one guy who got Gladiator last season playing on that Red Paladin. So he was looking for another Gladiator title for sure. With that Xbox controller. I think it's so funny that it was a Red Paladin, by the way. I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Well, at least it wasn't Hunter or something. But yeah, I saw that. We talked about that. Did you see the video? Like some of the hand movements he was doing, like he was like crossing hands over to like push button. It was crazy. Some of the different stuff he was doing.
It's impressive.
It was. They updated text to speech. So if let's say if you're sight impaired, you can have some. So the game will actually speak to you what's being typed on the screen. I'm not sure how much. Shoot, I wish I should read into this. I'm not sure how much that is actually to all chats. Like I'm not sure if they've added that in or not. Sorry, one sec. So multiple chat tabs. Settings can now be saved at the account level rather than per character basis. In addition, enemy and boss dialogues, emotes have been added to the options. You can activate text to speech to boss emotes, whispers, as well as non-boss say, yell, whispers, emotes in the chat tab. So I'm not sure if that's just anything being said, but yeah, cool. What's the last one? Hey, that's kind of funny actually. I just the text to speech announcement. That's funny. Yeah. Shift click your CR. So you know how in chat, if you want to like link an item into chat, you can just shift and click it, and and you'll be like, hey, look at the item I just got. Well, you can now do the same thing for your character rating for Arena or Mythic Plus into chat. So if somebody's asking you link your experience, you don't need to go find your Burning Crusade achievement for 1800. You can just shift click what your current rating is into chat. So
nice.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I'll do the next one just because. So our friends skillcap.com, they're seeking writers.
Yeah.
Are you not writing for them, Big? No, you're too busy making videos. You're not writing stuff. Like what exactly is this? What is this?
I'm still writing. So we're just looking for more hands on deck. Right now we're currently overhauling all of our courses for 9.2, which, as you can imagine, is a massive overtaking. I wish I could just snap my fingers and have it all be done, but that's just not the case. And so we're updating all of our guides, and that's going to, of course, take some time. And so aside from that, it's just good to have people who are willing to work, and so it'd be any sort of content that SkillCap produces is needs a writer, and needs someone who kind of understands the ins and outs of PvP and the ins and outs of video making, not necessarily editing because there's no editing required, but if you're interested if you have experience in PvP and you're interested in writing, and you think you have a good skill set when it comes to making guides, we're looking to hear from you. So I've posted that on the official Skill Cap Twitter. If you're interested in applying, I'll probably be reviewing applications in the next week or so. But yeah, it should be an interesting experience. And if you want to work with me, if you want me to teach you how to write, then feel free to apply, and we can potentially work together.
So when you're talking like experience, does my 800 CR count as experience? Is that a good enough achievement, or should I buy a boost to get like 1800 so I can at least say that I'm worthy?
It's tricky, and I think about this all the time. Is you don't necessarily need to be a rank 1 player. It doesn't hurt, but it definitely helps. I think having high rated arena experience definitely helps with producing guides, but it's not necessarily required on the writing side of things. Of course, we're looking. Ideally, the candidate would be like a rank 1 or tournament player, and that'd be ideal. But obviously, that isn't the case. And you can certainly be a good content producer without having those achievements. But it's just one part of the puzzle pieces that we're looking for.
Cool. That's all right. I'll make sure I sign up ASAP.
Nice.
I'll link my current CR of 0. And
nice.
All right. I'm sure everybody saw the Mage Tower went permanent. So originally 9.2 dropped with the Mage Tower being part of the Legion time walking, and then was taken down about 2 weeks after, if I'm not mistaken. A bunch of the community talked about this. It was actually said in the that whole community council special section of the forums. Great conversation there if you want to read it. And ultimately the devs were like, you know what? They're right. So we got what we wanted. So now effective today, NA, tomorrow, EU. Sorry guys, you got to wait at least one more day. But the Mage Tower is now permanently available. So head on in there. Make sure you head over to the auction house and look for Bigmoran's
gems.
Low gems there. The 4 expansion pack gems, so you can gear yourself out for that. But go and have fun. We talked about tier LFR Wing 2 opened up today as well. So that's some more tier for you if you want. And I already said about the thing about the 925. So I think that's about it. I don't know. Is there any parting shots about the news there? They're big. Anything else that you were excited to see that we didn't talk about?
I don't think so. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Nothing's come to mind.
All right. Kind of ran through a bunch of those, I think, pretty quickly, but I don't know if there's much more to say about those. The one thing for the 925, just because I think for they're saying, so it's not going to be guild level. Guilds are still going to be stuck to being faction tied, but a whole bunch of the community stuff is opening up to being cross faction as well, which I think is really awesome. I would love to see if any of our listeners want to. I'd love if you went in there and gave us your experiences. Tell us what you thought. Go in there, make a character, whichever faction. Go ahead and give it a play, and let us know. And if you need some more people to play with, like come on over to the Discord. Come over to the Discord channel. There's a bunch of people sitting in there as well, and I'm sure we could probably get some people together and go in there and have some fun and see what it actually feels like to play, orc and human playing side by side. That'd be kind of interesting. All right. Shoutouts. Big. Do you got any shoutouts you want to give?
Yeah, I've given a shout out before, but shout out to my friend Jax. He makes some useful add-ons for World of Warcraft PvP.
He does.
He makes a Jack's Party Cast Bars. Geez, I'm blanking. I just gave him a shout out. I don't even remember what add-ons he makes. Anyways, he makes add-ons. He makes cool things. So
Yeah.
shout out to Jack's, cool guy, and I don't know, a good friend of mine.
Even after that last interaction on Twitter, that's nice, man.
We like to troll each other.
You guys are funny. All right. I'm going to shout out once again all the people that interacted with us over on the Reddit /r/world of PvP /r/wow. Both there. Some great interaction of players giving us their opinions, experiences, and just with regards to boosting. And also over on the official forums, both NA and EU. Got some interactions on both there. And again, just really appreciate. And there's some great honesty. And I was actually really surprised. There's some great interaction, some crosstalk, conversation going on. But I didn't see any shaming. I didn't see anybody who, shamed anybody who had participated in boosting, which I thought was very, very mature and really awesome. It was some great conversation. So on that, I'm going to throw it back to you, Big. Can you tell everybody listening right now where they can find us out there on the interwebs?
Sure. Yes. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Warcraft Radio Discord. Also, you can visit the Warcraft Radio website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at warcraftradio.com. This new directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows.
Indeed. As always, link for everything we talked about is going to be in the show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Oh man, I stepped over my own tongue by that. You have a great night, Big. You have a great night, listeners, and we'll talk with you next time.
See you later, guys.
And